Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Love Lost series with Linda K. How are you? As difficult as talking about grief and sharing our experiences are, today I want us to go even more deeper, even more difficult conversations. What I'm going to talk about today is are we able to prepare for death? Are we able to prepare so that we've heard how impacted and how devastated things become for those of us that are left here. So I want us to start thinking about what can we do to help ease the devastation, to help put things in perspective, to help accommodate our loved ones when we're gone. Because you just have to agree with me. Like no one is getting out of here alive. We're all gonna die. As we're living right now, we're losing people. Our lives are being impacted. We're trying things. So the journey is so difficult. But it gets even more scarier and even more difficult when we are not prepared. And I'm not talking about accidental death. I'm talking about you and I going about our business like it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. So like I said, it's a difficult conversation, but that's the Love Lost series within the K. I want to put this out there. I want to educate us on the things that we can do to start to make things less devastating for the people that are left behind. So we're going to talk about documentation. We're going to talk about personal directives. We're going to talk about enduring power of attorney, and we're going to talk about the wills. While we're at it, why don't we talk about insurance? Right? Especially, and not only for the people that live abroad. Like, you could still be living in a developing country and you will need insurance, or your family, you having that insurance benefits your family. And talk about personal directives. Everybody, as long as you're over 18, 21 in some countries, you should have a personal directive. So these are the things we're going to talk about in this video, just so that people understand that we're not wishing for it, but we know it's coming. It's right there and we know it's coming. It's just a matter of when. In the Love series, we've learned how people's lives are impacted, how this can be life changing. Everything just, breaks and falls apart. But in your own role as a person living on earth today, what are you doing to prepare? I'm not talking about depending on what you believe. I'm not talking about the life after. I'm not talking about repent, for the time is coming. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about those practical things. What can you do today that will help alleviate, that will help comfort, that will strengthen your family left behind when you're not here? The first one we're going to talk about is the personal directive. In other countries, it's called the living will. This is a legal document. Personal directive is a legal document that allows you to name a person that you trust to make decisions on your behalf in case of mental incapacity. And it doesn't have to be notarized. So basically, any document that you write down that names somebody that you trust and you're saying, in event that I lose my mental capacity, this is the person I want to make decisions on my behalf. That's just what it is. Some of the decisions that the personal directive empowers the person that you trust to decide on will be things like the medical care, the residential. So it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with your finances. This is just saying, in event that I lose my mental capacity, I don't want to be hooked to the tube, or I want to go into a nursing home. What kind of nursing home? Those decisions are yours to make. You have the power to do that now that you're living. If you don't do it, then you leave that up to the medical professionals to decide, whoever is closest and whoever is there at the time, as opposed to a family member, to make those decisions for you. So it's a conversation that we should have. And it's not okay. It doesn't end at just having those conversations. We actually need to put them down in writing. Like I said, you don't need to notarize it, but put it down in writing. Put it somewhere that somebody can find. Give it to the person that you trust. Because if I'm the person that you trust and we've had this conversation, great, good and fine. If you didn't put it down in writing and I'm not there, or I may be there, but I'm not a spouse, I'm not a family member, they're not going to take my word for it. They're going to listen to whoever is there at the time. So that's why it's important to make those decisions. In a personal directive, you can also include instructions. Like I know some faiths don't want to be don't want blood infusion. So those are instructions that you can put in there. So you don't only name somebody that you trust to take those decisions, but you can give them specific instructions on how to do those things. And that's also lessens the burden, because most people may not want to be the person you trust because they don't want to make those life-changing decisions. But if you've been very clear as to what you will need to be done, that helps. And again, it doesn't, I love the personal directive because it doesn't have to be notarized. If you don't, you can speak to a lawyer to guide you, and if it's going to cost you and you don't have a family lawyer, please just write it down. Just write as much as you know. There's forms online that you can use as guidelines. It's going to guide you as to the kinds of things that you can write. That helps. That's going to be very helpful, because remember, losing mental capacity doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to die. You can temporarily lose your mental capacity. So there's somebody that makes those decisions, and then when you feel better, there is an evaluation. There's a capacity assessment that's done, and that person no longer needs to make decisions. You can start making those decisions on your own. So it's very temporal, but it's very important, because if you don't have it, then it's just going to be the person that's closest, the person that's there, the person that the medical personnel can decides that it's going to be that person making decisions for you, right? Do you have a personal directive? Write it down. Take a minute. Go online. Google it. It's going to give you guys, depending on your jurisdiction or where you live. Check it out. Do it today. Just do one thing for you. It's also really important for me to say, in your personal directive, please do not, the things you write, the instructions that you give need to be legal. You cannot write things like assisted suicide. You cannot, it has to be legal. So your instructions need to be legal. In event that your instructions in your personal directives are not legal, the medical professionals are going to do what's best for you, again, with the people that are closest to you. So even though a personal directive is so temporal, we're hoping that you will, gain capacity and not need it. In event that it becomes, you go like Alzheimer's, or you have a permanent brain injury, then that personal directive is going to be in place forever and ever, right? So those are the things to think about. That, yeah, even though this is so temporal, I'm just giving these instructions, you want to make sure that the person that you're trusting is someone that, in event that it's permanent, your disability becomes permanent, that they continue to, that they're going to continue to be your personal directive as long as you have a document. Another thing that I didn't mention, that I wanted to mention for you to remember to put in there, it's about your children. If you have children that are below 18, sometimes it's not even about you. They may not be a life-changing decision for that person to make for your care, but what about your children? This is your chance to say, in event that I lose my mental capacity, temporarily or otherwise, this is whom I want my children to live with. This is whom I want my children to associate with, right? So it's not only, personal directive does not only cover you, it extends to your children under 18, or your elderly parents. Like if you're a lone child and you're the caregiver for your elderly parent, that's also something you might want to include the personal directive. In event that you lose your mental capacity, these are the instructions that you need to do. This is, so all of those things. So it's not only about us and medical decisions, but it's all where we're going to stay. It's also for our dependents. So that, again, it's really, really important, because if you have that information firsthand, and this is your chance to speak up when you're not really able to speak up for yourself. So it's really good. It's really good. I think we should all have it. Again, do you have a personal directive? So the next document is the enduring power of attorney. This is a legal document that you make to name someone to entrust your financial decisions, financial matters to them. So with your personal directive, it was more your personal health care, where you're gonna live, what how where your children or dependents are going to live. But with an enduring power of attorney, it is taking over financial matters. This, I cannot emphasize how important it is. If you don't have one, please do it today. Put it on your to-do list. It is really important. As important as the personal directive is, we're always going to trust that the medical professionals are going to do what's best, and the nearest, closest relative that they can find is going to do what's best, and we can, survive that. But with the enduring power of attorney, when it comes to your financial matters, it is so and equally important. Take this seriously. Please do it. In the event that you don't have an enduring power of attorney and you lose your mental capacity, a family member has to go to court to do documents. They'll need a lawyer. It takes time, and you may quickly go into a financial crisis. And if it's temporary, if you've lost your mental capacity only temporarily, imagine what you're gonna come back to, right? So it's really, really, really important, because it starts immediately in effect once you lose your capacity, and continues if it becomes permanent. So this person is still working, advocating on your behalf on your financial matters. I recommend that you see a lawyer to do the enduring power of attorney, because you want to make sure that you've covered all the parameters, that you've protected all of your net financial interests and stuff. More importantly, each power of attorney document is different. So to make sure you check and read it carefully to know, when it comes into effect. Does it come into effect as soon as it's signed? Does it come into effect, on a specific date? Does it come into effect when a specific event occurs? So make sure that you're paying attention to those little details. Talk to a lawyer about getting your enduring power of attorney. And the reason why you need to find out when it goes into effect is if the clause in there says it goes into effect when a major life event has happened, it should also tell you who is going to contact you. So because I may be on someone's, but how am I going to know that it has happened and now it's in effect, right? So that if it's that kind of document, we need to make sure that we're including instructions on exactly how it's going to go down. Because the last thing you want to do is, talk to a lawyer, spend a few $100s, get an enduring power of attorney, and then I don't know, I'm on it. I have no idea. I am in La La Land. I'm on vacation in Jamaica, and you're needing me now. So there has to be a plan on how I'm going to be informed that it has gone into effect. So for an enduring power of attorney, it does expire. It doesn't continue. There's an automatic expiration date on an enduring power of attorney when one of these things happen. You die, you revoke it, the court cancels it, a trusteeship is granted, your attorney dies, or whoever is entrusted into dies, and there's no one to take over. You want to be careful. So I actually had an experience with enduring power of attorney a couple years back. A family of mine lost her husband. They had an enduring power of attorney, and while he was in the hospital, we took over things. He was starting to lose mental capacity, and so we took over things, and we were rushing to the bank the whole time. And then he passed, but we didn't withdraw money from the account. We're just making sure that bills were paid, and we're so focused on his illness. But lo and behold, he passes, and we're like, okay, now we need to go secure the money from the bank. And isn't that laughable? Because we show up and we say he's dead, and they tell us, oh, by the way, this document doesn't hold no water. We can't even, the bills that we used to go in there and even do, we couldn't do anything. We had to go bring a death certificate. The accounts were all blocked. We had to bring a death certificate and then to go through another process to be able to access the accounts. So if for nothing, when you watch this video, please learn from my experience that that you have an enduring power of attorney does not, it expires, it is useless if that person dies. So once you have an enduring power of attorney and that person starts to lose mental capacity, or you think that, in his best financial interest, we need to start moving accounts, that's the time to do it. Because once the person passes, everything's blocked. You cannot access the accounts. You cannot do anything. There's a whole different process to get that done with. So the next document we want to talk about is the will. So unlike the personal directives and the enduring power of attorney that you may or may not return to it, with a will, it comes to the effect only when you're dead. Once you die, a will comes into effect. We want to look at the will. We want to see where your property, who the property was willed to. We want to talk about your investments. We want to talk about your your children, your family, how things have been allocated. So that's where you do all of that. It's with a will, and you really want to talk to a lawyer to get a will done. So there are two kinds of will. There's a formal will where you do it in front of a lawyer. It's in writing. It has your signature. It's signed by two witnesses. Or you have a holograph will where it is prepared entirely on your own in the comfort of your home. But it's in your handwriting. It's not typed out or anything, right? It has to be in your handwriting and it has to be signed. Those are the two ways that you can do a will. They'll both be valid. But you cannot write a will on your own and type it out. You need to make sure that your will is holographed. I've had people ask me, what if I'm trying to write a will for my father and he's illiterate? I guess depends on where you are, depends on the laws of the country where you are, depends on your jurisdiction. If you're able to write a will for someone that is not able to write, not because they're mentally they've lose mental capacity, but because they just are not educated to write. So it's a dictation. So that will depend on the laws in your jurisdiction. Also, really important when you have a will, you need to constantly update it. If you're divorcing, if you're having more children, if you're acquiring more property, if you're stretching out your investment, you need to update your will. Because the last thing you want is for you to pass and your will is stating that you've handed everything to your ex-wife, that you may or may not even have had children with them, and you're currently married with a woman with children. Yeah, so we want to currently update a will as a life events occur. As life changes, we have to keep updating the will, keep reviewing it. And again, you want to talk to your lawyer. When you're changing it, you want to talk to a lawyer. So those are the three documents that I wanted to highlight. I'm just summarizing and highlighting. There's a lot about those documents, and again, it depends on your jurisdiction. So you want to be current. You want to make sure, if you're doing a personal directive or a will and you're not talking to a lawyer, just make sure you read it online, Google it, find out what's going to be applicable. There's no point making, because we're trying to bring some comfort in events that, death or you lose mental capacity, for the people that have to support you, for the people that are left behind. So if you will go through all of this and you do one and it doesn't serve anybody at the end of the day, what a waste, right? So we want to try to make sure that we're paying attention. And because we're talking about how to prepare for in events that we're not going to be here, I just want to talk about insurance. How many of you have life insurance? Life insurance is so important. It's so important. I know you hear it. I know you're hearing it for the nth time. I know that it's in the back of your head, but how about you do it today? It can be really cheap. It doesn't have to be something that's expensive. I mean, life is hard. I'm not asking, any more financial commitment than you already have. But in my community, there's if you belong to an association, they usually have a community one, like the Retour Pays Natal. That's a great one. I've seen it work. It's great. It's really inexpensive. It could cost you less than $20 in a whole year. And I think what you pay out is the 15,000. But even in your own little meeting, if you're not going to the whole grand one, but it's better to go into the bigger one, because your premium, it's really low, it's really small. You have to pay in every month or every year. It's really small. So buy that. Just have a life insurance through your meetings, your cultural associations. Have a life insurance through your work. It may also not cost you a lot. It may cost just a little. It may just take a pinch out of your paycheck. You may not feel it, but it comes in really, really handy. And for those of us that have immigrated, that are immigrants, it is really hard when, our preference, we've done that wonderful, we've done our due diligence, we have a personal directive, we have an enduring power of attorney, and we even have a will. And in our will, we're saying, in the event that when I die, I want to be buried in Cameroon. Are you thinking about how your corpse is going to go there? Are you just going to leave it to faith? Are you just going to leave it for people to, contribute? Or are you going to leave it to GoFundMe? I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing GoFundMe when people die. Don't get me wrong. It's really important. If that's what's available, that's what's available. But we're humans. We're living. We live and we evolve. How are you participating to make sure that when, in event that something happens to you and you're not here, that your loved ones are not even, they don't have to deal with that? It's just little things that we do that makes it a little easier. If I have to, if we have to mourn you, our lives have to be impacted by your loss, and we don't have to deal with a financial crisis because you had everything laid out. That's something, right? That's helpful, because once you're no longer here, someone's going to miss you. And even if you have no family, you might want to donate to charity. You may have no family, or you may not have no regard for, like, you don't want to leave your things to anyone. Don't just leave it to stay somewhere, sitting somewhere, and for the government to decide what to do with it. Just put it in there and say, I donate everything that I have to charity. It doesn't have to be a lot. Whatever you have is worth something. Whatever anybody has is worth something. Just make sure that when you're not here, the things that you participated in how you're going to exit. You participated in how life is going to be when you're not here. For my community, I also want to talk about discrimination. That didn't come out right. It sounded like discrimination. No, I'm talking about crimination. So when people die, in this part of the world, they're cremated. That's something that's not in our culture. But there's some people that have embraced this culture. They've become a part of it, and they are okay with it. My brother, my sister, my fellow mother, my fellow parent, if that is what you chose to do, please put it in writing. Do not leave that widow, that widower, or your children torn because you did not put it in writing that this is what you wanted to happen. Families, especially, big or small, I shouldn't say especially, big or small, families struggle when they have to bury a loved one. Remember, I'm not going to use me. Remember, somebody may have lost their spouse, but that spouse has siblings. The spouse has a family. So if you're my spouse and we are having these conversations and we're not putting it in writing, and God forbid something happens to you, how am I supposed to explain to your family that this is what you really wanted to do? How am I supposed to do that? So please help this family to stay united when you go. Don't be the person that when they go, the whole family breaks and nobody can agree on anything, and it's just chaos. And it could not even be spouses. It could be from the same womb. It could be a mother with 10, 5, 1, 2, 3 kids, not one, but 2 or more children that cannot agree on how things should go in event that their parents loses mental capacity or dies. These little things are going to help us. Please put it out. We're not saying once you do a will, you're going to die. I'm not saying if you do a personal directive, you're going to be in a car accident and suffer brain injury. No. I'm saying be a part of the conversation of what happens to you. Be a part of the. This is your time to participate, because once you lose mental capacity, you cannot participate. And if you're always talking about it, like my sister always says, oh, I don't want to have a viewing, in the event that I die, you know, she wants to be dressed well, but she just doesn't want to lay it in the public for people to come around looking at her. Please put it in writing, because you're telling me I'm your sister, I love you. At the time of your death, God forbid it's not soon or ever, because I love you so much. But seriously, if something should happen, how am I supposed to do this? Even if everybody agreed, even if you told everybody, I may just be feeling like, no, my sister deserves a viewing. I'm going to do it like everybody does, or everybody in my church does this, or everybody in my community does this, so I'm going to do it. Because I'm grieving, remember? I'm grieving, so I'm just losing it. So please put it in writing. Of all these documents, there's a way to do it on your own, in the comfort of your home, without spending any more money. So please think about it. Put it in writing. Let us know. Be a part of that conversation, how you want to be treated when you exit. And how you want to be treated even if you don't exit and you're here. What would you want if, or in the event that you lose mental capacity? Let us think about it. You don't have to be young. Anyone that's over 18, 21 in some countries, you should have one. You should have those conversations. Because if life has taught us anything, is that death does not come by seniority. Anyone dies. Anyone goes when your time is up. So let's start to think about those things. And it's not only okay to have the conversations with our loved ones, it is very important to put it down in writing. Put it down in writing. Do it as a family. Have a conversation. And then put it somewhere. And if you don't have a family attorney, that's okay. Just make sure that it's where somebody can see it. In Alberta, you can email it to the registry at no cost, and it will be documented. The medical professionals will be able to see who to contact in event that something happens. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you. I really appreciate to all my subscribers. I love you, and you have no idea what you mean to me. I love you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye-bye.